Happy Wednesday, friends. Happy Winning Wednesday. I am your girl, Dominique, Atlanta's nurturing agent, and welcome back to another episode of Winning Wednesday Tips. If you're a returning viewer now, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate it. This is a show, I guess, where we present real estate tips to help you on your journey to home ownership or to help you on your journey to sustain your status as a homeowner. And so today I want to just dive into 4 upfront costs that you will have to pay attention to when you're in your journey to become a homeowner. And the first one is your earnest money deposit. Earnest money, in essence, is a good faith deposit. It's a deposit to show that you're serious about purchasing the property of interest, right? And so typically it ranges from about 1 to 3% of the purchase price, but it can sometimes go higher than that, especially if you're in a market like what we're in now, where it's a seller's market and you want to appear as competitive as possible as a buyer. You may want to consider increasing your earnest money amount to maybe 5% or whatever is the highest you can go as a buyer, because you want to be competitive. And in a market like this where properties are getting multiple offers, you want to make sure you stand out, right? So that's the first tip. Second is you want to have your money for an inspection prepared. An inspection is not mandatory, but it is highly encouraged, because what it does is this is a process conducted by a qualified inspector who is trained and certified in ensuring the condition. I shouldn't say ensuring, but they are certified to assess the condition of a home and the safety of a home. And so that includes looking at your HVAC system, your plumbing, your electricity, sometimes even the roof as well. So they are there to assess the condition of the property and the safety of it. And it is, again, not mandatory, but highly encouraged as a buyer, because it is going to give you an idea of what you're getting into in terms of that property, right? Because you will be provided a report when the inspection is done by that inspector. In terms of what to save for this process, I've seen them as low as like 200 to like 2 to 250, and then as high I've seen some in the 500s. And so I want to just say maybe set aside $600 just to be safe. Obviously, the smaller the property, the less it might be. So a home that is 6,000 square feet is probably not going to be as at the same price as a condo that is 1,100 square feet. It's going to be different, you know? So that's the second cost. The third one is your appraisal. Now, the appraisal is interesting because, and I didn't mention this, let me pause for a second. The inspection that I mentioned, that is conducted by an inspector, but the buyer is the one who actually hires them. And so the buyer can get an inspector referral from their realtor, or if they have friends who have bought homes or know people, they can always, I always feel like word of mouth is like great anyway. But if you know people who have already bought homes, ask them, who was your inspector? What did you think of them? What was your experience with them? And then interview a few inspectors and kind of gauge what feels good to you. And that's how you pick your inspector. But the appraisal, which is the next cost, that one is hired by your lender. So the lender pays for the appraisal to be done. And the appraisal is a process in which the value of a property is determined. And typically that's done with the appraiser, whom is hired by the lender, looking at comps. So comps in the area, what homes in the area that are close in design and square footage, so on and so forth, what those sold for, and compare it to the property that you want to buy. And the reason that the lender is the one behind the appraisal is because the lender, and this is only if you're financing your home. If you buy a home cash, then you don't have to have an appraisal done unless you want to. But typically, if you're getting a home finance, so if you are using a loan to buy a home, the lender's gonna have an appraisal go out there, because the lender does not want to lend money to a home that's being bought not undervalued, but overvalued. So let's say a home is worth $200,000, but the seller's selling it for $300,000 in a normal market, not this market. In a normal market, even this market, that would be kind of a lot. But in a normal market, a lender would not adhere to that, because you're paying more than what the home is worth based on the comps around, based on the homes nearby that are similar that have sold. So they're not going to lend to you if a home does not appraise. So the home has to at least either meet the price that the seller is selling it for, or has to be under, and then the lender would be happy to lend based on that. But if it's over, if the home is worth more than, what's the word? If the home is again, example, 200,000 and is worth 200,000 based on comps, but you're asking the lender to give you 300,000, it's not going to happen. They're not going to give it to you because it's over. Next one is, so we had our earnest money, our inspection, our appraisal, and the last one is a survey. Surveys are not, oh, sorry, I'm going too fast, clearly. Appraisals are hired through the lender, but the buyer pays for it. And so you should expect to pay, I would say, honestly, when I have my own experience and based on my previous client, I would say they spent $600 through their lender for their appraisal. They had to pay $600. I would just set aside, it's hard to say, talk to your lender first. I would say that when you're doing your shopping for a lender to get a rate, which is in another video I have, but when you're looking for rates, just ask your lender what is an estimate for an appraisal, and ask them to share that with you, and they'll be able to kind of give you an amount to like keep in mind to set aside money for. Last but not least is the survey. The survey is not exactly something that happens often, but a survey is essentially a process that determines the boundaries of a home and also confirms the legal description and any other restrictions regarding that property, should that be needed in your case in buying a home. Again, it's not very common, but it does happen, and it is something to pay attention to if you're buying a home that requires a survey. So 4 things to pay attention to for upfront cost is your earnest money, your inspection, your appraisal, and a possible survey. And here's a bonus if you're moving into like a new construction home. Set aside money, actually not even just new construction, even if it's resale, just make sure you have money for appliances if you need to buy appliances and any kind of repairs or updates that you might run into as a result of buying this property or your new property. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. It's a little longer than I would have thought in terms of the time for this for this episode, but I hope it was helpful. I hope I was able to give you some tips of what to keep in mind in terms of upfront costs when you are buying a home. And here's to your continued winning.